Okay, folks, let's talk about Nibiru, pole reversals, magnetic pole reversals, and axial tilt of rotation of the Earth. Nibiru is probably a fancy of somebody's imagination, but it may not be. But it leads us to the other options. One is polar shifts. Now, polar shifts of the axial type occur every 20-something thousand years. And all it is where the North Pole changes in its tilt from one, say, you're tilting mostly away from the sun versus mostly towards the sun. That's not likely to happen in 2015. I know a lot of people have the doomsday belief out there in 2015 or some point in the future, in the near future, that if there's a pole reversal going to come, all the continents going to be displaced, Germany's going underwater. I mean, you can find all kinds of stuff on the internet, particularly YouTube, about it. That won't happen. Now, there might be some rising and flooding and earthquakes and volcanoes, but it's not going to be that significant. What you're likely going to see, instead of a axial reversal, which is what they were predicting, but you're going to have an actual change. The axial axis, when it tilts from 22 point whatever to approximately 30 degrees, it's going to make the northern hemisphere colder during the summer. I mean, winter, and hotter during the summer, and the same for the south. Other than that, it's really not going to be that big of a difference. Then you look at the magnetic poles. Magnetic poles is totally different situation here. This is not the same thing as the North Pole. Most people think it's the same thing. It's not. Okay, the North Pole is a line that is drawn through from the southern tip of the sphere that we call the Earth, which is a sphere is an imperfect circle. So there's actually a point down there that we can call the South Pole. This is called true south. It runs through the equator to true north. Even if the magnetic poles reverse, true north is still going to be true north. It's the magnetic north that's going to change. And there's this situation where the magnetic north is known to fluctuate from time to time, shortly before a major reclassification and restructuring of the Earth's inner magnetic fields, causing it to flip to the south. Okay, this is possible. Let me explain to you why. It's currently moving from the north magnetic field that has actually been positioned at for thousands of years in northern Canada. It's slowly moving towards the true north, which is where it wants to be. That's just, it's kind of like a hurricane trying to go somewhere, and it eventually peters out when it uses up its energy. That's why the magnetic field is getting weaker. These flips is where the magnetic polarity inside the Earth core tries to draw it towards true north. It looks like it's going to flip over to possibly somewhere in Siberia. Right now, in 2014, it went from 30 to 40 miles estimated further. The year before, in 2013, it only went like 6 to 7 miles more. That's an exponential increase. If that continues within the next year, sometime this year or sometime next year or the year after, we will be through almost all this cycle. By 2018, we should be through the entire cycle. The problem is the magnetic field may become zeroed out temporarily. That could lead to what the Bible refers to in the Revelations. Now, what that refers to is a third of everything will be burnt. The only way you're going to avoid that is if you make some sort of internal food production capacity. I would build the buildings, I would lay them on the ground and hope no earthquake sucked them under. Then once the earthquake went away and all that other stuff settled down, I would build the buildings and start to grow plants inside. Now, in a couple of years, 2-3 years down the road, say 2019, 2020, the Earth's magnetic field should be back to normal, and that should be that and that. I pretty much covered the entire thing, I do believe. and it shouldn't be a major problem except for that period where the magnetic field completely disappears. Now, to get into another subject altogether more promising. Now, we can form electromagnetic fields. The way we do this is, if you ever looked at the Taj Mahal or the U.S. Capitol, and you'll find this on YouTube as well, not just my YouTube, somebody else's, I just don't remember who it was. They showed how the technology used to build a force field looked exactly like that CERN building above the CERN Super Collider. It looked exactly like it. You take that formation, you put a north-facing electromagnetic at the top of it, and you put another one just like it directly above it, and put a north-facing electromagnet straight down at the other north magnetic, and it forms a force shield around anything it's around. And this force shield would protect a city, depending on how much power. And you don't really need a lot of power to protect a city against the kind of stuff that we're expecting. So, I mean, that's a solution to the problem. Whether you can get it built in time, I have no idea. Whether you even want to build it, I don't know. But I thought I'd tell you how to defend yourself, and I thought I'd tell you the problem you're up against. Pretty much everybody believes it's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. I don't know if it's worth wasting the money on these force shields. But hey, that's up to Yuns. Yuns going to have to make that decision fairly quick, too. You're talking about months before it could start happening in big time. It's already apparently started happening, that square. If you remember what I said about the North Magnetic Pole moving from 6 to 7 miles in 2013 to 30 to 40 miles in 2014, that's a square faster. If you square it again for 2015, that's 1,296 miles. Not meters, miles. That's moving. And I don't even, depending on whether you apply the bell curve, for anybody who remembers that from that book that everybody said was a racist book, but it had a few good equations in it that were useful to be used. If you use that, then you're looking at a 4-year term. The first square, the second square, the rounded down, the square down, and the last square down. That means we've got basically 5 more years of this. Yeah, that's about right. But anyway, that's 4 to 5 years. I mean, we're almost halfway through one of the years, so basically 4.5 years. So, I mean, what can you do to prepare for this? Well, I'll tell you one thing now. The best thing you can do to prepare for this is to stockpile seeds in your basement, if you have one, or if you're in a lower, if you got a basement in your building at work or something, you might put some there. But I wouldn't do that, because a big building might fall. But put it in some sort of container, an iron container, with a couple of magnets at the center, one again north facing north, and that'll form a little bit of electromagnetic field around it and protect your seeds. This being said, the best types of food to buy is cans that look like the Vienna sausages. Vienna sausages are high in calories. These Vienna sausages, tuna fish, beef stew, anything in a pop-top container, or if you've got a can opener, then you can go with something that requires a can opener. But you might want to just go with pop-up, like like Coca-Cola has a pop-up thing on the cans. Well, some of your foods come with pop-ups so that you don't have to cut them open to get to the food. That's what I would stock up on. Water, not a big deal. But if this electromagnetic field collapses and we get inundated with lots of radiation, you might want to consider motion sickness pills. Why? Okay, the reason why: your body is itself an electromagnetic field, i.e. your brain. Motion sickness is where your brain loses its momentum. I mean, sometimes you might get a what you think's an inner ear infection when it's actually a magnetic disturbance in your ear, and it causes you to become temporarily disoriented, and you don't know what the world's going on. Or it can feel like a little pain, or it might feel uncomfortable. I mean, if you've ever went from a 1,000 foot to a 4,000 foot altitude in less than say 25-30 minutes, then you've experienced this and experienced the common popping sound in the ears when you change atmospheric pressure levels. That's the kind of thing you're talking about running into. Disorientation, earaches that don't have any apparent infection, nausea in the stomach, probably going to happen. So kind of expect that sort of thing. Maybe buy you some Nexium. I mean, a couple of years supply of Nexium. I buy you some ibuprofen. It seems to work pretty good for headaches and to clear up. Buy you some sweet oil, or the more generic version, or olive oil. Canola oil may or may not work. I've never tried it, but I know that olive oil, which is what sweet oil is made out of, does work. Those you can put in with ear drops to soothe your ear, and it'll return you basically to a normal status, and you'll be able to hear for a while and be able to orient yourself more easily. Whew. I can't think of anything else to add. So you guys have a good day, and Thomas Willis here, and have a good one.